gonna sing on the mic, yeah. Uh-huh. To the new view, let's go. I might not be able to see you, but you can see me with your mind, baby. Even though you may have sight, you should know that I am blind, baby. So don't judge me, get to know me. Don't rush, just take it in slowly. I could do much more than you know. I can open your mind with my eyes closed. Eyes closed, mind open. Come into my world and let me change your view of me. Oh, eyes closed, mind open. Come into my world and let me change your view of me. Eyes closed, mind open.
Hello, and welcome back to Eyes Closed, Mind Open. I am your host, Hannah Kinsey, and today I have a spiffy young man with me here. Say hi to the people, Liam.
Hi to the people, Liam.
I knew he was going to do that.
Yeah.
I fall for it every single time.
I am nothing if not predictable.
It's true. It's true. Yeah. But Liam is, he's a special guy. But we're going to learn all about audio games today, which, if you know anything about video games, they're video games without the video. So all you get is audio, and that's how you have to play the game, is just by using your ears alone. So Liam is an audio game creator. And so I thought it would be fun to just learn a little bit about his story, to talk a little bit about audio games, and so how blind people can play games, kind of like sighted people. And then maybe we'll do a part 2 later on where we talk about accessible mainstream video games. So, stay tuned for that at some point in the far future. But first, Liam, let's talk about just a little bit about yourself and maybe how you got started and why.
Sure. So my name is Liam Ervin, and I actually, until recently, did not reside here in Oklahoma City. I'm originally from Chicago, and I have globetrotted quite a bit, if you consider the United States to be a globe. But make my home here in the Oklahoma City metro, and have to say that I love it. And man, audio games. So what really, it's so getting started is kind of a weird story. And it all really started with video games, really. Growing up, I owned a Nintendo and a Sega and all those consoles, and thought, gee, this is great that we have video games, but why don't we have audio games? And it turns out that, we did. We had people developing text adventures, and we had people developing all of these things, but I wanted to make my own games. And so as time went, I started learning to code in high school, and developed quite a few games that are, I would say, are historically significant, I suppose. I've had people tell me they are. I don't know if they are or not, but I like to pretend they are because it makes me feel good. But really, I just really love what I do, and people around the world love it.
So you have been blind all your life, correct?
Correct. So I was born with a really rare disease called Norie's, and in the genetic lottery, it's like winning the Powerball, sort of, I guess. And so it's super rare. Not a lot of people have it. It causes blindness. And for me, it causes a bit of deafness. So I literally, at this point, as we're recording this, I have hearing in only my left ear and a little tiny bit in my right ear. So I like to say that I am rocking 3.5 senses instead of 4.
It's true. And I'm sitting to his right. So that was smart on my part.
What?
So our stories, as far as video games go, are rather similar. So I've been blind my whole life as well, but always was intrigued by video games. I remember we had a Nintendo, and my cousins would always come over to play. And one of my fondest memories was when we were little, we stayed up, pulled an all-nighter to play Super Mario Brothers 3.
Yes.
And we just beat the game in that 24-hour period or whatever it was. Nowadays people are all about screen time. We didn't care about that when we were little. No. We did what we wanted. And so I was so fascinated by all of that, but bummed at the same time because I didn't get to experience it in the same way. So it was fun being with my cousins and hearing them ooh and ah and, struggle to beat the levels and different things like that, finding all the Easter eggs and the hidden things. But I didn't get to participate in the same way.
No, and I think your story mirrors a lot of people as well that went through that. And I know that was the same for me. My friends would come over and I had video games and they would play them. And part of the deal was you got to play at Liam's, but you had to describe what was going on. So I like to say I helped develop the Let's Play or the playthrough. Like you see a lot of on YouTube now, because really in the 90s, like people would come and like play games and talk about them. And I would live vicariously that way. And I was like, there's got to be a way to enjoy this somehow. And, without going too far into the mainstream side of things, like that is something that we definitely think about. And a lot of us in the space try to move forward. But like really, audio games was where it started because, they were simple to make and all you needed was sound. You didn't need pictures. You just needed your sounds. And that's really kind of like what got me going was I was like, wait, I can make stuff that like me and others can play and we don't have to be shut out anymore.
Right. Did you play any other audio games? Is that kind of what helped you get started? Or did you just think, I want to do this all on my own before?
So I would say I'm going to go back to, we'll say 99. Well, really, you want to go way back. I mean, we had an Apple IIe, and I'm going to show my age a little bit here. But we had the Apple IIe with the Echo 2 synthesizer and something called Text Talker. And it was a piece of software that could read some text on the screen and speak it out through a just wonderful, wonderful synthesizer. It was pretty awful, actually. People have it so good now. But what was really cool was we had a lot of games that could be played because back in the 80s and 90s, but really in the 80s, late 70s, early 80s, you had games that were just text. Press 1 to do this, press 2 to do this. And then the random number generator decides if you did this or not. And that was stuff that we could play. I mean, we had a sort of simplified version of Oregon Trail. We had a personal favorite of mine called the typing game, where letters would come down the screen. And there was a visual element to it, but they'd be calling out as they came down and you would type the letter. And, if you got it right, then you zap the letter off the screen. And there were a lot of really cool discs and a lot of games that you could not only play, but also you got like, I got a lot of typing practice that way. And so like I found them to be, edutainment.
Yeah. So, and I find it interesting because, where you're talking about that, I grew up a little later and not much, but a little. And so my experience was in the 90s and I knew nothing about audio games. So I thought, or anything that was accidentally accessible. So I thought, this is all I have is having my family describe or I would get to kind of play alongside them. Or then when we got a PlayStation for the first time, I would play all the fighting games. So like Tekken, I was really good at Tekken. But I didn't really get that same experience. So then when I discovered audio games for the first time, I was like, whoa, what is this? And just started like trying everything. So I remember one of the first games, and I think this was you, and you can tell me that I'm a buffoon if not, but there was a version of like Duck Hunt from the Nintendo. Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah. And I was like, hey, I remember playing Duck Hunt on the Nintendo with my family, and we had the actual gun that would plug into the to the system, and they would just be like, aim right, and I would try to shoot the ducks down. It was a hot mess, but I had fun. And so then when I found that version that you made, I was like, oh, Duck Hunt nostalgia, and now I could play it myself just in a different way, just hearing where the ducks were coming from, moving and shooting them that way. So that was like one of my first audio game experiences. And then, I went down the rabbit hole to see what else was out there.
Yeah, and that's what happens for a lot of people. They'll find a developer, and I've been truly blessed that I think I've been their first foray into gaming and into audio gaming, and then they just start discovering what else is out there, and then Pandora's box has been opened, really, and it's humbling. I mean, I never really thought when I started making games that I would touch people's lives, and I can't think of, like, I lose track of the people that have like come up to me at not so much events as much, but like definitely online. I'll hear from a lot of people that'll be like, yeah, you were my first you were my first foray into gaming, and like I don't know if I would have ever found this if it hadn't been for you. And that means a lot to me. Like, really, it does.
It's really cool when what you do is super impactful to other people.
Yeah.
And I will say, I don't know that was the first one I tried, but it's the first one I remember just because I was like, hey, I know what that is. And so it was really cool to have something, super recognizable, and it felt like the mainstream. Because I know that sometimes with audio games, it can be like, all right, this is really simple, or this, isn't maybe as much as I was hoping for or whatever. But with that, because it had all the, same sounds and everything. Yeah. So it was like, I know what this is. And so that's why I vividly remember.
And for people, it grounds them in something that they can recognize. So I've made a lot of games, and most of my games are original concepts or based off of something else. So like I have a game called Judgment Day, which is really just Space Invaders with like a World War III-esque type theme. I have the infamous, and this was my first game, really my first big breakout thing. It's called Super Liam, which is kind of embarrassing, but there is a story to it, and I suspect I'll be telling that story. But it's kind of like Super Mario in a way. Obviously, it's a little different, and it's simplified. But I guess as far as I know, and there's been some debate on this, and I want to see it because somebody in the 90s apparently had made a side-scroller. To my knowledge, I am the first person to ever make an audio side-scroller for the blind. If there's an older one out there, I'd love to see it because I'm really into history and love to see people's concepts. But I mean, my claim to fame, until someone breaks that, is that I created the first ever side scroller for the blind using just audio. And I mean, I was not prepared for how big this thing was going to be. When I was a kid, I wanted to make a video game. I wanted to make Super Liam, not because I was full of myself, which I'm not, depending on who you ask. But I just thought it'd be cool to make a game. And so I made this audio game where you run through these different levels and shoot at enemies with your little laser gun and jump over hazards and duck under things. And there's a cheesy story and good music and sounds and everything. And it turned out really well. And, not only did it turn out well, people actually liked it and people played it. And then they came back and played it again. And then they came back and played it again. And then they told their friends about it and their friends played it. And, it kind of put me on the map, I guess. And I never really thought about wanting to be big. I was never like, I guess in high school, I found an old a newspaper article that I was in. And they asked me, what do you want to do? Like, what is your goal? And apparently a freshman in high school, I said, I want to be famous. And it was kind of funny because I remember going back and reading that a few years ago, actually, because we'd found the article and scanned it and everything. And I thought, I think what's more important than being famous is just doing good things. And I'm so blessed and so honored that I've done good things. And like Super Liam has opened the doors to do a lot of cool things. I've gotten to speak, in front of a lot of cool groups, and I've gotten to travel. And I've gotten to talk about gaming, and then like right here, I'm here doing a podcast. And let's be honest, that would not have happened if I hadn't made that game and people didn't like it. So I'm truly blessed, and I've touched a lot of people's lives. I think one of the coolest stories that I love to tell is I had released the game in 2004. Yeah, 2004, and so I think it was in 05 or 06. A friend of mine, Raul Gallegos, is a good pal of mine. Him and his son would play audio games together. And I think his son was, or is, low vision. I never got the whole story on that, but he was like 5. And so this was something that they shared, like they would play games together. And so he started playing Super Liam, and his son really enjoyed it. And so he called me and he was like, hey, this is going to be kind of a weird thing and you can say no. But, my son really likes the game. He's going to turn 6. He's a good kid. Would you call him as Super Liam for his birthday? And it was so cool because, I think that was the moment in which I realized that what I was doing was bigger than me and that what I was doing meant so much to people. And I feel like actors probably go through this too. And you read a lot about actors. So Jim Cummings, who voices Winnie the Pooh, has done a lot of things in hospitals where he'll call the children's hospitals and talk to the kids as Winnie the Pooh. And I think that's the coolest thing ever. And it's selfless and it means something to kids and it's something they'll never forget. And I guess he would always talk about that, how cool it was that this, Super Liam called him for his birthday. And it was neat. And it was just, for me, it wasn't the recognition, but it was knowing that I could make someone's day like that. And that's what I'm here to do.
Yeah, that's really cool. And even to go back to the first side scroller, or possibly first, we don't know. I didn't do my research, okay? But but I will say that's fascinating. Even one of the first, it's fascinating because for a long time, for those of you, which is probably most of you who don't know, for a long time in the audio game space, side scrollers was where it was at. Everybody was doing it.
Yeah.
So you had, of course, Super Liam, but then you had Philip Benfall's stuff, which was Tarzan Jr. and Q9 and all of these different things where they were the same concept, just the story was a little different.
I voice characters, by the way, in Tarzan Jr., unfortunately.
That's awesome.
We were both kind of working on those at the same time. And one thing I will say, one thing I love about audio games is I don't feel that it's competitive. I think we're all out to make cool things. And I've definitely worked with others. I've definitely helped others. I've mentored others. If somebody has had a question, I've been there to try to answer it. Sometimes people will be like, hey, can you voice something for me? Can you record voiceovers for a menu or something? And I'm always here to do that if I can. But yeah, no, like you're saying, I mean, when you started, there weren't side scrollers and there was this kind of explosion of different side scrollers. And, I'm really honored to kind of have kickstarted that. And I think the coolest thing is people have gone and taken the concepts and made it better and made it their own and added things. There's a really cool set of games from Japan. I'm just going to call them BK because I don't speak Japanese, but the BK games are amazing. And I had actually reached out to the developer and I was like, hey, BK3, really good game. Do you mind if I steal this concept if I ever make a Super Liam sequel? And he was like, no, I stole the idea from you. So there's a lot of borrowing, stealing, renting, leasing, whatever going on in the community. But, the end of the day, I think the goal is to make stuff for people to enjoy.
Yes. Shout out to him because, probably one of my favorite audio games that I've ever played, maybe if not my favorite, just because of the amount of detail in the things that you do and just the way the levels were thought out and designed is crazy. But how cool that he was like, yeah, but I stole it from you though.
Yeah.
So to come full circle on that, because you're like, can I steal that from you? He's like, well, surprise. But that's the cool part about it though. And I think you're right about the community of developers is that nobody was out to get each other to really compete. It was just like, hey, I like this thing that you did. Now I want to try it and put my own spin on it. Yep. And like you said, make it better or just have those different stories. Because I enjoyed playing Q9 just as much as I enjoyed playing Super Liam. And they were different. One, you were an alien and the other, you're Super Liam. And so, it was just super fun. But then to watch how things have progressed and we went beyond side scrollers. Everybody was always begging for more of a fantasy themed, thing that you could explore and go on a quest and all of that. And so I think about a Hero's Call where they tried to do that. And that was way more complicated because you were actually exploring these larger maps. So you weren't just going side scrolling anymore. And how that worked out for them. And, some things didn't work out as well, but the concept was still really cool. And I think the first of its kind that we had in that genre. So it's cool to see people expounding upon what we already had.
I agree. And I think audio games really have just been one big experiment because there is no formula. I think everyone wants to try things and do things differently and explore, like, what are the boundaries? What can we do? What can we make? How can we make it interesting? And I think one cool thing that audio games do, and gaming in general, well, I think they do a few things, but one thing is, and if you're listening and you have lost your vision or are losing your vision, I think one thing that they do is let you know that, listen, it's not over. Mm-hmm. I used to be a technology instructor. I've worn many hats, by the way. I probably, if I had a closet full of hats, I'd have a lot of hats. But I used to be a technology instructor. And one thing that I used to tell my students was, I know that it's hard and I know that it's scary, but your life isn't over. In some ways, it's just beginning because you're going to discover all these cool things that you would have never known about. And so I think one of the things that I like to do when I can is teach my students about games, and not even my games, but just games. Because one thing that I think, no matter who you are, no matter like where you come from, where you live, what your gender is, if you're old, young, tall, short, whatever, you want to have fun. And what's a great way to have fun? A game. And I think gaming brings people together. And, I think audio gaming, especially because it's something that you don't need to see for. And you could just, play with your ears. And it's something that we can all enjoy. And, if we end up getting into like a mainstream development at some point on the podcast, like, this is definitely something I can wax poetic on because it's something I am constantly telling developers. But I think gaming is for everyone, and I think it's important. But yeah, I think audio gaming is a great sort of like introduction for people, and especially like people that are losing their vision or have lost their vision. It's, it's not over. There's a lot out there for you and a lot you can do.
Also, as an added bonus, it helps you learn to rely on your ears.
Sure.
So especially for people who go blind later in life, they have always relied on their eyeballs because they could. And why wouldn't you? And now, especially if you lose your vision very quickly, you are having to learn to navigate the world in a completely different way. So audio games in some small way can help you because that's all you have are your ears. So it's the same as, when you go out in the world and you have to learn to listen for new things and kind of have your brain process those so that you know what to do. So they're actually kind of helpful.
And there's all sorts of different games. So, maybe you're trying to learn how to get more used to hearing sounds like in different ears. So, I say different ears, you only have two, I hope. But, you're trying to determine, is this in front of me, behind me, to my left, to my right? There's games that do that. Mm-hmm. Maybe you are somebody that is trying to learn to type again because maybe you never touch typed. I had so many students that they would look at the keyboard and pick and peck. Yes. And well, guess what? You can't really do that. So there's games that'll help you with that. I've been working on a set of games that like probably should have been out like 10 years ago. But it's a collection of word and math games. And the idea was, hey, let's make learning the computer fun. Let's make training our brain fun. Let's make math fun. Let's make words fun. Let's make stuff that isn't fun. Because I honestly, and something I would tell my students was, unless you are a nerd or a geek or whatever term you want to use, the computer isn't fun. But being blind, you kind of rely on it more. We rely on technology more, obviously. This is what keeps us connected. So trying to come up with ways to make it fun is really kind of, I think, the hard thing. And so there you go. It's another thing. Gaming makes it fun. We want to have fun, right? So
it's true. I agree. And plus, there are mainstream games that do that for kids.
Sure.
That make learning fun. So why should we not have that in the audio space as well. I mean, ideally, we'd like for the mainstream ones to be accessible. Come on, but if not, if there isn't one out there like that, then that's where people like you step in,
absolutely,
and make it happen, which is what's really cool.
And gaming now has extended into our smart speakers. So if you have an Amazon Echo, there are games for you. And those are things that you just get to talk to. And so there's no screen required on most of the games. I think there's like 1 or 2 games that require the smart speakers to have screens, but like most everything like Jeopardy and Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. And I think there's a Price is Right one still. And like, there's a lot of stuff out there that you can play with just your voice. So if you're listening to this podcast and you have a smart speaker who, I'll try not to trigger it by saying it's wake word, we'll just call it the Amazon speaker. Hopefully it's not your wake word. Otherwise it just went off. But you have so many options available to you.
It's true. And also, there are different clients where you can play like card games or dominoes, anything like that. So if you don't have people around you, that you could play with in person, or like cards are hard, especially like if the print isn't large enough for you and you don't know how to read Braille, then that's out in person too. So Then you have ways to play those types of things too, because of these kind developers that take time out. And also, we should also talk about like, being in the audio game space does not make you rich.
No.
Because first of all, there's not huge clientele.
I just want to point out that I only own 2 yachts and 3 cars. I was hoping to be up to 5 yachts and 6 cars by now. I'd like more yachts than cars, but that's not where we're at.
And his nose has extended to the size of the room. So.
I'm surprised this is not poking the microphone. But no, it is, honestly, it's a labor of love. Mm-hmm. I would love nothing more than to be able to make games all day and make that my career, and it's just not feasible. I have to work a regular day job, and so it really limits my gaming output severely. But, I mean, we make them because we want to give back to the community, not because we want 6 yachts and 5 cars.
That he can't even drive anyway. What do you have a driver? Do you have 5 drivers and 6 captains?
I have a 2-car garage, and I have, I believe, a 2-car driveway. So I can hold 4 of those cars.
All right. I said you don't have drivers for your cars, to drive you around, chauffeurs. Oh. See, I sat on his right side, y'all. I shouldn't have done it. You need chauffeurs and captains for your yachts.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. I can get one of those little yachts I can just put in the bathtub.
There you go.
Oh, my gosh.
Anyway, as we divert to insanity here, but another thing that I'd like to circle back to is because, I mean, this isn't necessarily audio games, but it is how you talk about doing voice acting, which is another one of your hats in your closet.
Sure. Which
is really fun. I love how you talk about how you work with other developers. So one of the things that I think of is Scramble because that's a fun one. And I feel like you got to have a lot of fun helping with that one.
It is. So there's an audio game made by a buddy of mine named Stephen Doherty. And it is just insanity. You run around, pick up coins, avoid rocks and cannonballs. And while you're playing this, you're being mocked by a character named Mr. Scramble, who is voiced by yours truly. And like Hannah said, I had a blast recording voiceovers for this character and just having fun with it. And I love stuff like that. It's just a lot of fun.
The other fun thing that he does, so Liam also streams on he's throwing things at me now. No, I'm just kidding. He also streams content, mainstream content, and also audio games as well. And so one of the fun things that I like is if there's dialogue that needs to be read on screen that's only text, that he'll come up with voices for the...
I will. And sometimes the voices purposely will not match the characters. But it is fun. And it's, and again, it comes back to making things fun for people. I could either sit here and help. I need your help to, finish this quest, or I can just be like, I could use some help to finish this quest here. So it all depends. It's just about having fun and making it interesting for people.
It's true. It's delightful.
I do wear too many hats. I'm just thinking, like, if we stacked my hats, it'd be a pretty tall hat stack.
You would be like Dobby the house elf when he's trying to save all the other house elves from the scary hats and scarves that Hermione made.
Yes.
Yeah. And so he grew like 2 feet taller or something because of all of his.
No, just a lot of hats. I have definitely lived a varied life. But it's fun, and it's fun to be here. I was thinking today, actually, I believe this is the first podcast I've ever recorded in person. I've been on a few different ones and they've always been remote. So it's kind of cool to come into a studio and actually chat in person.
It is really fun. And I think there's something about being in person, and it's easier to kind of read the room.
I just feel like I'm on the radio. It's kind of cool. I'm like.
It's awesome. It's my favorite part. One of my favorite parts about what I get to do at New View is to do this podcast, which I didn't even expect to be doing this, but it's awesome to get to sit here with people, let them tell their stories or share their experiences or talk about what they do, and to give them a platform, especially if they've never had one before. You are one of the fortunate few that, you already sort of had that, but you get to share with new people the things that you do. So it's one of my favorite things to do, because I feel like, not a lot of people have the opportunity to be on a podcast and to share the way that they're able to here. So
what I think is really cool about the podcast too is this is a great avenue for people, whether they're new to blindness, whether they have family or friends that are blind, or are just curious to understand that blind people do everything. I remember somebody asking, well, what do blind people do? And the answer is we do everything. Clearly I program games. I do funny voices. I've, worked as a teacher, but like, I know people that are woodworkers. I know people that fix cars. I know people that jump out of airplanes. I know lawyers. I know a lot of people. And so the answer is, what don't we do? And I think that's the question is not what do blind people do, but what don't we do? Mm-hmm. And so, I think you can do most anything. I don't think it's really a hindrance. It doesn't stop you. Obviously you want to, be smart about it, but like, please don't, you're not going to captain my yacht if you're blind. Like, but you know what I mean? Like, I think the sky, I don't want to say the sky is the limit, but
you're not flying a plane.
No. But I really don't think you need to be held back. And that is, hopefully, if you take away anything from today's episode or any episode, it's just like, we all have the same struggles. We all do the same stuff, and we get to do really cool things. And,
Yeah. Don't let it keep you from having fun too. Cause I think that's what this episode is really about too, is like, we can still have fun. You don't have to be shut in your house and doing nothing and think that you don't have hobbies anymore.
No.
Because it's absolutely not true. And if gaming was something that you always did, hey, maybe it looks a little differently now. And also, I intend to have Liam back in the future to talk about mainstream gaming and what you can do with that. I just wanted to dip our toes into audio games first, because I feel like that's something that most people aren't familiar with. But, gaming might look a little different. You might not be able to play the same exact things, but I think that's coming, hopefully. Yeah. We always are hopeful for the future.
We are.
But you're going to still be able to do things. So it's exciting.
And like I said to you, and I'm circle back to a thing I said earlier, if you take anything from today's episode, and if you're somebody that's like, man, I'm losing my vision, I can't play games like I used to, I just want you to remember, your old pal Liam said, your life is not ending. It is just beginning.
It's true.
And if you take anything from today, please take that, because it's not over. It's not a game over. It's a new game.
It's true. So do you have anything else to say to the people? And then after that, how can they find you and do all the things and learn about
I don't really. I think I've summed it up really succinctly. I'm glad I got to come out and talk to y'all and say y'all. Apparently, I've been living here long enough that apparently y'all has made its way into my vocabulary.
He's an Okie now. Watch out, y'all.
I guess I got to say, go Thunder. I'm not sure when this will get posted. Maybe the finals will be over by then, but go Thunder. Go Comets. Go OU. That's that. I can say that, right? That's okay.
As long
OU's.
as you say OSU also, or you'll have some haters.
Go OSU as well. Sure. Okay. Go all the universities.
Yeah.
Unless it's Texas.
There you go.
As for finding me, if you want to learn more about my games, please visit l-works.net. That's l-works.net. I also am on YouTube, and honestly, easiest way to find all that stuff is lerven.me. It's lervin.me, because that's me.
It is him.
I just made that up off, that's me. That's going to be.
Yeah, there you go. Well, I have had a delightful time. I hope that the listeners have as well. It's been a pleasure to have you here. And like I said, you'll be back one day. I will coerce him again. Don't you worry, everyone.
Will I get free food?
Yes. If you come back, I will give you free food.
Oh, right. I'll be back. That's all it takes.
There you go. Food is the way to his heart.
That's right.
But anyway, so I hope you guys learned something. I hope most of all that you learned that you can still have fun. Check out an audio game, especially if you're sighted. If you've never played a game just using your ears, you need to do it just to see how well you fare. I think it would be exciting. But with that, I will bid you good night and catch us next time on Eyes Closed, Mind Open. Bye.